this is only 5% of the overall district that we've explored. There's just so much left there for us to explore. And even just next to Napoleon and Copala, there's veins that we're making discoveries on as we speak. So 9 rigs are turning on the property. It's one of the world's largest silver precious metals exploration programs, certainly by a junior. And, we have great momentum. We've just listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So the company is in a position here that I think as the precious metals market and the market broadly recovers, I think we're going to lead the group here of our peers in terms of a recovery, and the stock price should do very well.
Welcome to Talking Hidden Treasures podcast, a sports and reality show hunting hidden treasures, which you should see in the fall here. A pilot shot there in the Yukon with Sean Ryan and Peter Tallman. But joining me today, I've got Michael Konnert. He's the president and CEO of Vizsla Silver and focused on advancing their flagship project, the 100% owned Panuco Silver Gold Project, located there in Sinaloa, Mexico. And Mike's been around for a decade in the natural resource sector. He co-founded and was CEO of Cobalt One Energy Corp. It was acquired by Blackstone there. And then, of course, Mike started back with Pretium, and I knew him with Riverside Resources. So, Mike, I appreciate you taking the time here. And by all senses of the word, you are a treasure hunter to me. So I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. And it's great to be here.
Yeah. So I guess let's go all the way back to the start here. What made the CEO of a silver company get into the business to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd always had a bit of an entrepreneurial tinge, I suppose. I was always quite interested in business, and so I started going to business school here in British Columbia, and through that time, I was exposed to the natural resources industry, and I would go study in the library at school, and I would flip through the magazines there. This was kind of before Instagram and Twitter and all that, so I wasn't as distracted as I suppose I am these days. But I was reading newspapers and business magazines to kind of do some downtime there, and I came across all these articles of mining companies and Gold Corp and guys like Ian Telfer building companies, guys like Robert Quartermain building companies, and I thought this is really interesting. And from that, I kind of investigated it a little bit more and realized it was all here in Vancouver and in British Columbia and Canada. And I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. So I was just really interested in that business. So, I started going to all these conferences, the Vancouver Resource Conference, kind of getting familiar with the business in any way that I could, and trying to meet people, talk to people, go for coffees. And through all of that, I ended up being introduced to the gentleman at Pretium. I ended up calling them repeatedly and hounding them until they offered me an internship. And that was where I started off at Pretium, basically at the very top of the resource market back in 2010, around that time. So I thought everything was fantastic. I looked around and thought, well, everyone's got money here. This is insane. All these companies are doing this great work. And any company that listed BC Porphyry was trading at $50 million, $100 million market cap, and so it was a pretty wild time to start off. And then of course everything kind of collapsed, and the metal prices dropped, the financing environment dropped. So I really spent the first half of my decade in a very difficult bear market, but that was what was normal to me. So it was a great time to start. I got to see the highs, and then I got to cut my teeth in the lows. So it was really an interesting time to start in the business.
Yeah, let's being in the mineral business here, I guess let's get into your thesis on mineral exploration. Obviously, you're here. You must see some importance in it. Obviously, global infrastructure, but I guess really tell investors what you think of the space.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time. It's a really important time to be in this business, simply because the ingredients that the world needs to grow and to achieve, these global goals of, electrification and things like that, infrastructure, they're impossible to achieve without the metal that we mine out of the ground. And so, the world's focus has been on tech companies and cryptocurrencies and things like that, kind of shiny objects, around the world for so long. Almost at the peril of developing natural resources. So, I know that this is going to be a business that's going to be integral to the globe, going forward forever. So, I think it's a great place to be. And like I said, starting off knowing the cyclicality of the industry, I also know that, if you're able to, build businesses during difficult markets, you certainly get rewarded when new money flows come in, and the market seems to favor these metal stocks again. So it's a fantastic place to build wealth, to create value, and even in those cycles, there's opportunities to make discoveries like we did with Vizsla, and really change people's lives. We had a huge amount of shareholders in the company that made 10 times, 20 times their money, and were able to buy houses and do things like that. So I've seen firsthand just with Vizsla how impactful it can be for for investors at early levels in these venture stocks. So there's a combination of the metal thesis that I think is really important, and these critical metals for the growth and the electrification of the world, but also the benefit of being in these junior and venture stocks and having them succeed. Now, of course, most of these companies fail. I'd say 9 out of 10, it seems like, don't go on to any meaningful success, but, you can improve those odds by following good management teams and good projects. So, it's dynamic, it's an exciting industry, and it's a very important industry.
Yeah, and you've are located there in Sinaloa, Mexico, as we mentioned. So I guess talk about what appeals to you in that jurisdiction, and I don't know, any good stories you might have kicking rocks down there.
Well, we were talking about this last night actually with some of the gentlemen on the team, and we were a bit trepidatious to go to Sinaloa at first. When we found out about the project, we said, oh, well, Sinaloa, is that safe? We spend, every time you open up Netflix, there's a documentary or a story about the Sinaloa cartel and the violent side of Mexico and this and that. But there's a huge opportunity to find value between perception and reality, I'd say. And, the perception we had was that Mexico, that part of Mexico might be a bit challenging, or, it was similar to what the Hollywood picture is. But in reality, Sinaloa is a beautiful place. The culture, the people, the food, everything there is really quite wonderful. And, we've come across some interesting opportunities there when it comes to mineral exploration, and I think the only reason that they still exist and that the district that we have still exists, even in our hands here, is because it wasn't across the border in Durango or Sonora or something like that where a major might have it. So I think encourage people to go to Sinaloa, check out Mazatlan. It's a wonderful place. It's a good spot.
Yeah, and you're Mexico, of course. A lot of companies down there hunting elephants here. So you think that you're onto something there. I think your body of work has proven there is. So let's maybe get into the flagship here and kind of drill down on what you really think you have here.
Yeah, what we've done with Vizsla and Panuco is we've consolidated a district for the very first time in modern history. This is a district that was discovered back in the mid 1500s, and because of that, it had actually seen pretty meaningful historic, almost artisanal production from small adits across the district, and then from one vein in particular. But over the years, many small concessionaires would have 2 hectares or 10 hectares, or some big concessions would be 100 hectares, of a 10,000 hectare district. So what we came across was that this fragmented ownership had been over time consolidated by two parties of the 2 parts of the district, represented by 2 families. And so we were able to go in and make a deal with those 2 families and consolidate the entire district. Now, this is the first time that this had happened in modern history. It gave the potential for us to explore without worrying about property boundaries and where does this vein go, where does that vein go. We had the whole district. So the opportunity to go into a district that had been exploited because it had very high grades back in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and take a look at that with modern techniques and thorough science, mapping, sampling, real prospecting, created an outcome here that we found extremely high grades of silver and gold. In a lot of cases, just below the old adits, where the old timers would go and mine and process very high grade material. So, we use that old workings to vector to new mineralization, and that was extremely successful for us. So at Napoleon, we drilled, the discovery hole was 6 meters at 8 kilograms of silver equivalent, which was essentially gold and silver and gold, majority to silver. And since then, we've grown that into a 3 kilometer long vein that's about 3.5 meters wide, 500 meters deep. I suspect that it's going to host over 100 million ounces of silver equivalent in the future. Napoleon has been fantastic, and we've made other discoveries throughout the district, including Copala. And Copala, I think, will be another very significant, probably over 100 million ounces of silver equivalent just at Copala as well. So, I look at this district and I think, well, we made that discovery within about 6 months of being on the property at Napoleon. We accidentally discovered Copala when we were drilling another target, and that's going to be a major resource. We have a huge amount of work to be done still. There's so much more exploration upside, but this is what comes from finding a massively underexplored district in Mexico and then applying new technology. So, I have a feeling that over time, Sinaloa, Panuco will be everybody will be familiar with it as a premier silver project, premier silver district, tier 1. And I think the only reason that we were able to seize that opportunity is because of that difference between reality and perception when it comes to Sinaloa. So we're very fortunate that a junior company that I IPO'd back in 2018 as a $2 million market cap company, was able to put its foot on something of this caliber, because typically these things sit in companies like Agnico or Fresnillo or some of the the world's biggest mining companies. So I'm thrilled by that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's get to you mentioned something earlier here about the rate of success here is very low for these companies. You seem to be the poster child for something that does work right now. Knock on wood for you. But I guess let's talk about the absolute end game with the company. What do you hope to accomplish here?
Well, with Vizsla, we take the view, and all of our companies in the Inventa group, but with Vizsla, we take the view that we're developing tier 1 assets. So if you're doing that, you're happy to be producing. You want to be the company that's producing that, and your grandkids can get dividends from something like that. So that's a great outcome. And I believe that Panuco will be a very large scale, multi-decade producer of silver and gold. But at the same time, the company is led by the board and myself. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all business people. We understand good business and we understand the time value of money. So we're open to to opportunities outside of just being a single asset producer. But we're more than happy, and we're building the team to be large scale producers of silver and gold.
Yeah, let's kind of get into how it's going now. Then current day. I've seen some fantastic numbers here. You've talked about them. Get into the vibe right now.
Yeah, well, we put out 12 meters of over a kilogram of silver equivalent there, which is, when we talk about silver equivalent, we're talking just about gold and silver. And this is in a very wide structure called Copala. So as I mentioned a bit earlier, we almost actually, we basically made a blind discovery of Copala where we were drilling into the hanging wall of Tajitos, and we intersected mineralization far sooner than we thought. And so we thought that was strange. We kept kind of drilling through that mineralization and into the target, which was Tajitos. And so we're looking at the core, we realized, well, we've made a new discovery here in the hanging wall of Tajitos. And the vein itself seems to go between 10 and 80 meters in width and thickness. So that's an absolute anomaly in Mexico that is very, very rare. You never see a seam of quartz vein with high grade mineralization that goes between 10 and 80 meters thick at very high grades of silver equivalent. So, and just to speak to that for a moment, the average width of underground mines and operations in Mexico is probably somewhere around a meter and a half, and that's economic. People are able to make good business mining narrow veins or 3 feet wide veins in Mexico. Now, the average width of our veins between Tajitos and Napoleon is between 3 and 3.5 meters. So already we're 3 times the average width there in Mexico. But when we're talking about Copala, it's 3 times the already 3 times width that we have at Napoleon and Tajitos. So it's just getting better. And this structure is huge. It's open to the north and the south. It's definitely going to become our flagship vein so far. Again, this is only 5% of the overall district that we've explored. There's just so much left there for us to explore. And even just next to Napoleon and Copala, there's veins that we're making discoveries on as we speak. So 9 rigs are turning on the property. It's one of the world's largest silver precious metals exploration programs, certainly by a junior. And, we have great momentum. We've just listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So the company is in a position here that I think as the precious metals market and the market broadly recovers, I think we're going to lead the group here of our peers in terms of a recovery, and the stock price should do very well.
Yeah, let's kind of look into the future a little bit here. You certainly laid out what's going to be accomplished when 6 months comes around. If we're talking, what do you suspect got done?
Well, in the next 6 months, we'll put out our resource update. I would say that's done by the end of this year. And then it's just more discovery drilling, more resource drilling, more expansion drilling. So, the idea is that Vizsla will become a large-scale silver and gold producer. In order to do that, we need to, first of all, discover what we have here in the west of the property at Napoleon, Tajitos, and Copala, understand, the quantity of metal that we have in those veins. And, I think it's likely that we put a mine plan around, well, it's not likely, it's certainly what we're doing. We're going to put a mine plan around those resources there and move that forward into production. So we can't rush that right now. We need to let the mineralization and the metal tell us how to build that mine and how to do that. So there's steps ahead of that, right? We need to drill. We need to convert that into a mine plan, and that's what we're doing. But you can't stop drilling until you know the natural limits of the structures and the mineralization. So we're still trying to find those.
So for those, Mike, I guess who want to find some hidden treasure, who don't want to maybe get an excavator or a metal detector and know where to go, how do they hunt this hidden treasure with Michael Konnert and Vizsla?
Yeah, following us on our social media, on YouTube, we've got tons of videos and things like that. But our website's really the jumping off point for that, vizslasilver.ca. But I encourage you to follow the stock. The ticker is VZLA on the NYSE and VZLA on the Toronto Exchange.
Okay. Michael Konnert, treasure hunter from Vizsla Silver, president and CEO. Real pleasure to have you drill down with me, Mike, and I'll certainly look forward to tracking your success as we move forward.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that.